I'm going to try not to get emotional. But it really is an honor to be here with you all tonight. Good evening, everybody. I heard everybody else listing a whole lot of people that they were greeting. I'm not going to try to do that. I'm not going to remember the names, but it really is an honor to be with you all here tonight. Just in walking into the school, I was getting a bit emotional, really because I owe the school. I feel the tears. I really owe the school a lot in terms of gratitude. Some of my fondest memories are from this place, and being back really is surreal. And so when I was asked to come speak to the matric class of 2024 as a guest speaker, I didn't hesitate, and I said yes immediately because it's an honor and a privilege. But when I actually sat down to write the speech, I had no idea what to say. And I had no idea where to start because, I've only been out of Thomas More for 8 years, and to be honest with you, at this stage in my life, even though I'm a CA trainee in my second year of articles at Investec, I don't yet consider myself maybe a role model or a success story. I think, to be honest, I'm still very much on the journey, and that while there may be a lot that I've experienced, I still do have a lot to learn. And so I thought, what I do, I talk about some of those experiences that I've had with you tonight, and I'd share some lessons that I've learned along the way, and hopefully matric class of 2024, there's some little golden nuggets that you can take out of that. And so, by and large, my upbringing is the result of incredible generosity and sacrifice of my grandparents. I was born in Joburg with my 2 younger sisters, and at the age of 3, my dad ended up passing away tragically. And so, because my mother at the time was an air hostess for SAA, she would go on overseas trips locally as well. And so what she did is she got a caretaker to look after us while she was away, flying all over the world. And before one of the trips that she went on, my gogo, who's here today, came up to visit us. And she said, the scene she saw was I was being force-fed. My sister, who was 1 year younger than me, was also being force-fed, and I guess the youngest at the time was 6 months, and she was crying in the corner, and then Ukoko said, there's no way. There's no way. So she called Mkulu, my grandfather, and who were based here in Joburg, and said, there's no way our grandkids can be raised like this. So they took us in, and at the age of about 3, I moved with my 2 younger sisters down to Durban, and they'd already raised 3 kids of their own. And yet, out of the love and generosity in their hearts, they took it on to raise another set of kids in their 60s. And so for any parent in the room, you'll know that raising kids is a mammoth task. And so the fact that they did this for a second time in their 60s really is something to be marveled. As I said, this is something I'll forever be grateful for. And so what I wanted to ask is, could we give Ukoko a round of applause? And I'm grateful for yonke into ongenzele yona. So after that, tears are coming. After that, I went to Kloof Pre-Primary and Kloof Junior, and then I started here at Thomas More from grade 4. So when I got to the end of primary school, it became evident that I'd need funding for high school because we as a family weren't in the place to be able to afford the financial costs of private school, given the fact that both my sisters and I were at Thomas More. So the plan was for me to leave Thomas More and actually go to Hilton because that's where my uncle went, and so hopefully I was going to get a scholarship there. So I applied and they offered me a 75% scholarship, and so now part of the application process involved getting a signature from the headmaster or headmistress of your primary school. So at the time it was Mrs. Talyard, so I went to her to get her signature for the forms. And upon finding out that I wanted to leave the school, she approached the school, and long story short, Thomas More ended up offering me 100% funding for high school, and so for that I'm very grateful, and it was a no-brainer. And in terms of me staying, given the financial freedom and the opportunity that it would provide me and my family. So I stayed and completed high school here, and man, I'm so grateful for that decision to stay. As I think it was it James who read the bio? I'm not too sure. Apologies. But as he read, I did manage to achieve some stuff at the school and got the privilege to lead the school in terms of being a boy and led some of the sports teams, and somehow I managed to do okay in academics. And so in reflecting back, I know that none of this would have been possible had I not taken the decision and the support and belief and encouragement of those who were rooting for me. And so that's the first lesson that I've learned from my experiences, is that you should never underestimate the power and just the prayers of those who are rooting for you, Matrics. Really, I know I had a praying grandmother, praying parents, and so never underestimate the fact that they're in your corner and that they'll actually guide you into spaces that are going to make you thrive. So that then leads me to the next big decision I had to make in life. So sitting where you Matrics are today, I'd finished school and it was now time to make a decision about what I was going to do next. And so I knew that I wanted to be a CA, a chartered accountant, and I'd received acceptance from Ideal University, and I'd received funding from Coronation Fund Managers. So the path was clear and it was provided for, and it should have been an easy yes. Everyone expected me to say yes, except there was a plot twist. So after much prayer and spending time in the Word, I really felt that the Lord wanted me to give the first year of my life, the first year of the rest of my life, to Him. I felt that the best way to do this would be to spend the first year out of school doing an internship program at my local church, which was Open Skies Church at the time, which is close to the Maytime Spa by Kloof. So the program was a highly intentional gap year centered around personal development, leadership, and spiritual growth. And expressing my desire to do this program and not to necessarily go to university did not go too well with most of the people in my life, to say the least. The funding from Coronation was basically the only way that I could get to university, because we couldn't afford university as a family. And so to make things worse, the internship actually required monthly payments for the various programs to be participated in. So what I was doing is I was saying no to money coming in and actually having to pay money to do something. And so people were like, is this guy okay? Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? So it didn't make sense. And a lot of people told me that I was throwing away, I guess, provision because we needed it as a family. But at the end of the day, the truth is I just couldn't shake off the feeling I had that this is what God wanted me to do. And so I made the decision, and it was very difficult, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, I guess, going against that which my parents wanted me to do. But the decision proved to be worth it, and God ended up showing off, as He always does when you choose to trust Him and do what's hard. And so during the internship year, I applied for other sources of funding, and I got funding both from Investec and from Allen Gray. Then I told them, okay, you know what, I'll have to choose one program over the other. And they said to me, no, it's fine. We both want to fund you, so we'll each fund you 50-50. And the beauty in this is that what one program didn't cover, the other one did. And so not only was my tuition and accommodation and books covered, but they also covered, Investec was fancy, they covered return flights to and from university. They'd fly us, very fancy, they flew us up to the Investec offices. And not only that, but my stationery allowance, given that I had two sources of funding, was so big that I then could fund both my stationery and textbooks, and then the stationery and textbooks for my sisters as well, for when they went to university. And so the decision to honor God with the first year of my life not only benefited me, but it spilled over to my sisters to provide for them as well. And so that's the second lesson that I wanted to leave with you guys today, is that I know I said earlier that you need to trust people who are rooting for you, but there will be times in your life where you actually just have to trust yourself. There are times where what you do might be unpopular, and hey, you might get a lot of opposition for making those decisions, but in those times you just have to trust the voice of the Lord or your inner conviction and stand by your decision, because the reality is that it will work out for your good at the end of the day. That's what happened to me. And so that's the second lesson. Then after the internship, I went to UCT and got involved in various things at university. And then during my third year, I was, I guess, shaken by the news of, tragically, the death of a fellow student at UCT, Unene Mkhwejana. which resulted in a lot of national protests in terms of sexual and gender-based violence. And I realized how many women were negatively impacted by this, particularly by the men in their lives. And what I saw in most of the protests is that they were being led by women, and women were leading things to address those issues. And in my mind, this was an issue because we as men, I guess, were perpetrating the issue. And so to me, this needed to change, because from a man's perspective, from a male perspective, and we the ones who were perpetrating the issue, so we needed to solve it. So in 2020, I started an NPO called Askhulumeni, which means Let's Talk. And the goal of the organization, as again, I think it was James, Brian. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Brian. Apologies. As Brian mentioned, the goal of the organization was to have conversations with young boys in order to change the way that they think, treat, and speak about the women in their lives. And so we've managed to do a few workshops in a few schools over the years, and Thomas More was actually the first school that we did back in 2020. And so through these workshops and conversations over the years, we've really begun to see changed mindsets and behaviors in young boys, and who have, after the workshops, left and want to be a part of the solution for this country. And so why I'm mentioning this, why I'm mentioning having started Askhulumeni, really is because it emphasizes my third and final lesson, which is the fact that you're never too young to make a difference. I was in my third year of university, I didn't have a job, didn't have a degree yet, I had no idea, to be honest, what I was doing and starting an NPO. But hey, I just went out and did something about the issue, because I felt a strong sense that I could no longer sit back and do nothing. And so, Matric class of 2024, I want you to never be afraid of doing big things that you feel will make a difference in society, even if you're young and even if they're scary. And so, to the parents or the guardians of Matrics of 2024, when your kids come to you with a decision or an option or a choice or something that they want to do, I want to encourage you to hear them out. The truth is that your kids are the byproducts of the way that you've raised them. And so when it comes to them wanting to make a decision that will impact their lives significantly, the same way I did, I'd say just try to hear them out, and trust that you've raised them in such a way that they can actually make healthy, sustainable decisions for their lives. I mean, yeah, unless of course it's just something absolutely ridiculous. Then you have to say, no, this is not happening. It is understandable that you want the best for your kids, and you want them to make the best decisions and don't want them to make mistakes. But trust that how you've raised them and what you've done is enough. Now you have the privilege of just sitting back and watching all your hard work flourish and stepping out of the driver's seat really, and being able to sit in the passenger seat and see the fruits of your labor. And so in conclusion, Matrics, if I was sitting where you are today and about to finish school, the three things that I wish I knew before I was about to leave are that I should never underestimate the power of those who are praying and trusting and rooting for the best for me. I would then trust the voice of the Lord or my inner convictions that I have, and I would never think that I'm too young to make a difference. Thank you.